Hello, beautiful humans. Today's conversation this is one of the hardest things for high achievers to do. And this goes right in line with this week's theme of mindful moderation. And it was more deeply inspired just the more I've been seeing the burnout cycles and the more especially as I'm getting back into training people in person. One of the biggest things I see with high achievers is this desire to, or this belief that we must be able to do everything and that we can just continue to shoulder the burden. And what hopefully this reflection gives some value to is knowing how to moderate yourself. And what I've noticed is that one of the hardest things for high achievers to do is to show restraint. And this is important because most people don't realize that the strategies that got you to a certain level of success is not what's going to take you to the next level of success. What do I mean here? Let's use exercise, okay? Especially when we start thinking about longevity. The consideration here is how long can you play the game? Longevity in human health and fitness and wellness is about how long you can continue to stay alive and do it well. With this, now you're looking at a marathon with an undefined end date and an unknown distance, an unknown amount of effort. So inevitably, let's consider this. Would you sprint a marathon? And the obvious answer to that is no. Because if you tried to sprint a marathon, you would die. You would burn out. You'd flame out pretty quickly. And most people can't sprint very far before they're completely gassed. And it takes quite a bit of time to recover from that. That's your burnout cycle, which is most people, especially when you're eager to help many people, you're eager to people please and support everybody. And in many ways, that's what got you to your current level of success. You went out and you helped and you helped and you helped and helped until you couldn't help anymore. And then you were burnt out. You were frustrated. You were tired. You're physically overwhelmed. You threw your hands up. You gave up. And during your recovery, the unknown period of recovery, your habits and your routines went by the wayside. Your healthy habits, maybe you stopped moving as much, maybe you stopped focusing on your nutrition as much, maybe you stopped paying attention when your sleep patterns, your health goes awry, not doing mobility, what have you. And all of a sudden you're out of shape or you get sick or what have you. Well, if instead you had shown some restraint, you wouldn't have put yourself in that position. What if you had stopped at 80% effort? How much longer would you have been able to go? Your long-term pace, what's that pace that you could just keep going for a long period of time, almost like you could never stop? That's the pace we need to find, and that takes some practice because it's not the same every day. We wake up and we're a little bit different every single day. We have unknown circumstances that come into our life. We need to build margins into our life. We need to rest and recover. So the lens of fitness, let's use that. A lot of people get caught up in the entrepreneurial mind, the person who's the high achiever, the person who's so used to being a busybody, who's used to that intense, soul-crushing thing. And I should say, I have been that guy, so it takes one to know one. And this has been a profoundly difficult lesson for me to learn, is that you want to really be leaving some meat on the bones. Success is not, I am soul-crushingly tired and exhausted after my workout. Success is, I accomplished the task that I needed to accomplish today. Sometimes you might be more tired than others based on other circumstances. Sometimes you might feel fresh and recovered and you might feel really good, and then you might stop feeling, and you would feel really pleasant at the end. It's not so much attaching the value of an experience or a workout or a training session to how physically exhausted and drained you are. Because if that's your only perception of success, then you missed the point. You didn't know what the purpose of it was. And especially if you're coming back from injury, if you have chronic aches and pains, what you really need to do is build more of a foundation, because your next level of performance must have a broader, more stable, more consistent base to support that. The foundation must be stronger than your current level. So you have to be more dialed in with your nutrition than you currently are. You have to go back and you have to be more focused on your recovery. You have to be more diligent about the different types of movement that you do so that you don't put yourself deeper into the hole to have to climb out of it. The challenge here is that we're so used to numbing out on the vehicle. And I'll say this for myself, when it came to training, especially back in my old CrossFit days, when I was trying to be a competitive athlete and I didn't realize that this was going on. But one of the things about that nirvana at the end of a blistering workout was I'd be laying on the ground, laying in a puddle of my own sweat, praying to the gods to spare me. But I was numb. I stopped feeling things. And that high was more or less me dissociating from the problems that I had really had earlier before, that I was thinking, that I was perseverating on. Now, this is not to say that there's not mental and emotional therapeutic benefits to exercise, and there very much is. You do sometimes have to realize that your problems are not that big a deal. But if your only strategy, and that's the important part here, if so many people get locked in this all or nothing, million miles an hour all the time, as this is the way it is, black and white. So many people see this world in black. Well, no, there's a lot of shades of gray. If your only strategy is to have this blistering pace that puts you in the ground to achieve success in your workouts, then that's very narrow-minded, because you're not thinking about all the other things that are going on in your life. Your relationships, your stress, your work, all of those things. Now, if success is deemed, here's the things I'm looking to accomplish, and I'm looking at a longer term goal, you'll realize that more often than not, especially if you're not trying to be some competitive athlete, and you're looking, which most people that I work with are business owner or executive, like you're looking to be sharp at work, have great energy, be focused, be within your body and fully present in your job, and have that creative energy and creative zest. And then you want to be fully present and engaged and active at home. You want to be capable of going up and down the stairs. You want to be able to do some physical activities and play with your kids and do physical activities with your family. Well, you'll realize the things you need to do to achieve that end result, not to mention look a little better naked along the way, is actually glaringly simple. Oftentimes, it's going to seem pretty easy, especially compared to what you're currently doing. The difference is the restraint in telling yourself that you must stop when you're at a certain point. So for the record, I do not train hard. I train to like 80% effort. Some days that feels a little bit more icky than others. My sleep was a little bit off, or my hydration was a little off, or my nutrition was a little bit funky, and that's okay. And that's knowing that. But I'm usually leaving space and margin, because I still have other things that I go about during my day. Maybe other physical activities might come. If I have to move something around the house, I have to pick, whatever it is. If you're not building those margins into your life, you're always robbing from your piggy bank. And there's only so much you can do of that until you run out. And then it takes longer to recover from that. People are surprised. Why do I feel so run down and feel sick? It's because you pulled from all your reserves. You didn't have any more bandwidth. Go figure. You overtrained in that sense because you didn't show the restraint. Now, if you do your training and then it's to 80%, well, it's not going to take you as long to recover from that. So I can come back and do some more tomorrow. I can train again. I can do a little more the day after, and then I can do the same over and over. So instead, for me, instead of seeing myself crush myself in some workouts, these long, super long training sessions with epic recovery protocols afterwards, I just do the simple basic things that I need to get the job done within 20, 30 minutes every single day. I actually accumulate a lot of work by the end of the week, and I'm not destroyed. I can keep going. All of a sudden, you keep stacking that over a month, over a quarter, 3 months, over a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. The compounding interest of those consistent behaviors over that many years. When was the last time you worked out every single day for a year? Probably couldn't say you wouldn't. Now, if you thought, if I had to work out every single day of the year for an entire year, you probably would change your strategy, wouldn't you? You wouldn't destroy yourself every single day because you're like, I got to get back and recover tomorrow. I got to be able to do it all over again. And you would be considering all the other things that are in your life. If you're going to travel, if you had some work obligations, if you had family obligations, if you had unknown craziness come up in your life, how would you look at it then? You'd start to see the wisdom of restraint, of saying, how do I stop myself now so I don't put myself in a place of injury or at risk? How do I give myself wiggle room? Because I don't know what's coming up later this afternoon. I don't know what's coming up tomorrow. I'm still giving myself the margins to recover. And because I'm not completely burnt out just from the workout, and I'm not super ravenous, maybe it's easier for me to maintain the focus on my nutrition. Maybe it's easier to be mindful of the other behaviors and habits that I've put into my lifestyle for my work and for my family life. And because I'm not running and burying my problems under the veil of fitness, of soul-crushing workouts, I can get to the point where I've taken the edge off and I'm feeling pleasant, and I realize maybe I've been able to consciously work through some of the things that I'm doing. Like, so half of my problem solving I do on a walk every day. It's active movement. It's not crushing me, but I can process the information. I can meet that information with mindfulness and grace and stability, as opposed to burying it, pushing it off for unknown period of time, forgetting all about it, and then having this big like emotional clutter box filled in the back of my mind that one day just I have to deal with. One is more steady, one is more conscious, one's more stable and more balanced, whereas the other way is not. From a sustainability standpoint, shifting your mindset as a high achiever to thinking less about like how much can I do today, but how much am I going to consistently be able to every single day, starts to steady out your behaviors and starts to get you to look at the entire amount of work, the entire amount of stress you put on yourself in a day, and start to create some harmony within all of those things. So my challenge to anybody who's listening at this point is to zoom out and take a look at your next month, your next 3 months, and look at all the elements of your life that are inputting stress. Family life, your health, because your health practices, they are a stress. There's something to be accounted for on your schedule. And think about your work stress. What are the things that are coming up? And take the big picture look so that you can walk it back and say, what could I do for my physicality and for my fitness and my health and my wellness to make sure that I'm consistent with everything for the next 3 months? And build in some margins. If you expect that you're going to be perfect, I promise you you're not. I've seen so many people box themselves in because they are trying to live up to whatever some social media influencer does for their day-to-day, but you have no idea what they do for their daily habits, and you have no idea what other resources they have at their disposal. You have to know yourself, and that's the hardest part. How do you ask yourself without comparing yourself to what everybody else is doing? How do you ask yourself, how do you know that you're going to be able to be consistent with those things for that period of time? And if your confidence level is like 10 out of 10 and you're like cool-headed and level-headed and you're not too super crazy, well, probably you can do that. So zoom out, and since you're not going to be perfect on your day-to-day when you're feeling those things come up, I want you to tune in to yourself, and especially let's use workouts as an example because that's where a lot of people try to bury their stuff. Slow down. Stop when you feel pleasant, because it's often when you've accomplished the task. That doesn't mean you didn't have a heavier lift. You'll notice I don't lift super crazy, but because I ran myself into that thing, that'll be a conversation for another day. But just check the box on what you got to do. Did you do the job, and are you able to show up and do the thing again tomorrow? Awesome. Then move on with your life. See how that plays out when you're not always reaching into the bag to borrow energy from other places. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, one of those kinds of things from your own energies. See how much more consistent you'll be when you actually approach this with some grace and some civility towards your body, because it is not a robot. It is not a machine. And often I think about, like, could I do this for the rest of my life? If the answer is no, then I probably need to rethink what I'm doing. So those are some thoughts and reflections. Remember that this is not uncommon. I see that this is a lot of what high performers struggle with, high achievers, whatever you want to call yourself. This is something that I've struggled with. It keeps coming back in, and I especially notice it's at its peak whenever I feel like I'm comparing myself to somebody else. And I put my value outside of myself and what my inner circle who truly values me for the right reasons. I put my value towards some obscure, arbitrary number of how much I could lift or what I could buy or whatever the thing is. And once I realize like that's not where my value is, and not even stuff that I care about, the things that I want, the success that I want, and the things that I'm capable of doing are not that far off. It's much closer than I was giving myself credit for, and it's usually pretty achievable. I just need to show the restraint so that I can be consistent every single day. Hope that helps. Give it a shot. Yeah, thanks for sharing your time and your energy with me, and until next time, I remind you to love everybody.